I'm here with Mike Wrathell, running for Macomb County Prosecuting Attorney and of the Republican Party. Mr. Wrathell, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Ron. Well, before I start, I promised some people I'd give them a shout out. So I want to give a shout out to Paparoni's Pizza, Julia and Rachel and Robbie and Trevor and Andrew and Hay and the Daily Dozen Donuts. They got such good donuts, the mayor of Warren won't let the police go in there anymore. They're hanging out there too much. Really good donuts. Keith, Lauren, and Brent, and a couple of assistant prosecutors. They're all great. I know I've been practicing law now since, I passed the bar in '92. So I know a lot of the assistant prosecutors. And I've said I'm not going to, as long as they're doing their job, I'm not going to, they're fine, they're safe. We have a good nucleus. There's JP and there's Dan and Kelly. Well, I got a bunch of Bills. I got Bill Daly, Bill Cataldo, there's Therese, there's Aaron, there's a lot of good people, Corey. All right, I'm done with my shout-outs. Now I forgot your question.
Well,
so.
I think I'm hungry. You're talking about donuts now. Now, let's see. For those who didn't see your interview at Meet the Candidates before the primary, can you tell us a little bit about your background and your qualifications for this position?
Okay, sure. Well, like Mr. Smith, my father was a police officer. My dad was a policeman in Detroit for 20 years. My grandpa was a homicide detective in Detroit. They were both in the military. My grandpa was a captain in the Army, and almost went over to D-Day. Got injured stateside. My dad was in the Air Force during Korea. I was high honors at Sterling Heights High School, class of '79. I went straight to Michigan in September 1979. Started out political science. I've always had political aspirations. I've thought, instead of complaining about politicians, why not just kick one out of office, If you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. And I feel it's time for him to go. He's been the prosecutor for 20 years. But, since he beat David Viviano in 2004, so 12 years. After undergrad, I went to Cooley Law School up in Lansing. I started there in '88. I took 3 years off of law from undergrad. I took 3 years off. Wrote a novel while I was out there. A lot of kids, they go right from high school to college and then law school, and then they want to be a lawyer their whole life. I don't want to be a lawyer my whole life. I like to be a prosecutor, get the job done, and maybe move on to be I love be in Congress or something, because there's our country needs good people in office. And when someone does something bad, like not letting your assistant prosecutors run, or firing someone because one of your employees puts a bumper sticker on their car that says me instead of him, that's First Amendment. I feel it's time for Eric to go. And I'll be just as tough or tougher on crime than him. One of the biggest problems in Macomb County, by the way, is heroin addiction. It's unbelievable. When I was a kid, in the '70s, we had heroin, and now it's making a resurgence. We've got to. I will work with federal, state, local officials. We got to break the chain that starts from the growers in Afghanistan and Colombia and ends with our youth dying on the streets.
Now, last time you were with us, you mentioned about your support of decriminalizing marijuana, or
Yes.
it being available to the people as a recreational usage. Some people might say, let's be against all drugs, the heroin and the marijuana. Some people call marijuana a gateway drug. What is your stance again on those issues?
You could say that alcohol is a gateway drug to harder drugs too. And it's funny because I spoke with one of the assistant prosecutors about this, and really the gateway drug to heroin isn't marijuana, it's not alcohol, it's painkillers. It's well, it was Vicodin. Now there's some other drug. There's hydrocodone. There's a lot of people can't afford prescription painkillers anymore, and heroin's cheap. I don't know how it's getting in this country from Afghanistan, but it is. I'd like to find out, and I will try to, like I said, break the chain. But marijuana. Marijuana is not a narcotic, it's a euphoriant. It makes people happy, and it can be abused like alcohol. I don't think you should be driving if you just smoke some. You shouldn't be driving if you just had a couple drinks. But what you do in your own home, as long as you're not hurting anyone, well, marijuana is not addictive like heroin is. It doesn't destroy you, it won't kill you. And heroin addicts go out and break into homes and steal. It's a completely different type of person that is a heroin addict from a person. I know a guy that when I lived out in Oregon, he played bongos with Joe Cocker in Woodstock. He told me he smokes pot every day just because of his anger. He's a great guy. I worked with him at UPS.
Now, you mentioned about constitutional rights,
Sure.
including freedom of speech, about the bumper sticker, and you touched on marijuana being decriminalized. Now, last time you spoke a little bit about the right to bear arms. That's a big topic in the national
Sure.
debate right now as well.
Sure.
Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I think whenever you see some sort of tragedy, like happened at that elementary school or in Colorado, there's talk about taking guns away from everybody. Law-abiding citizens in their home aren't the problem. You should have the right to bear arms and keep arms in your home. And if you passed gun safety licenses to carry and conceal, there's times where a law-abiding citizen can stop a terrorist attack or some crazy person who shouldn't have a gun at a mall. There was recently. There's a retired policeman that I think women should be able to have a little gun in their purse. I have a sister. I don't want it. The crime's going to get worse as our economy is getting worse. So I'd like to see. I think women should have the right to have a gun in their purse. The problem is people who are mentally unstable. You have felons. You can't. There's always going to be somebody who can get through the radar. Go under the radar. Unfortunately, but we can try to do our best to try to identify people who are at risk of being loose cannons.
Now, what are some of the other issues that you'd like to see addressed if you are elected?
Okay. I have this idea that we have 83 counties in Michigan, and prosecutors, if we all got together and had kind of brainstormed to try to tighten up our laws and suggest changes to the Michigan legislature, because the Michigan legislature, with all due respect, they don't even have to graduate from high school to be a state rep. There's some smart people out in there, but prosecutors are dealing with crime every day, and if all 83 prosecutors could get together once a year or maybe twice a year and try to brainstorm and look at the laws and try to suggest changes to tighten them up so that people who violent criminals and people who are repeat offenders, if we can make some crimes, violent crimes, increase the maximum penalty, and also suggest ways to treat people with heroin addiction, for example, because these are our kids. This is the youth of America. I don't, throwing an addict in jail isn't the answer.
You mentioned recidivism last time.
Right. That $10 word I learned up at Cooley in Lansing. Yeah, recidivists. there's in Europe they try to treat addiction, and we do a little bit, but we can do better. As heroin is a huge problem, not only in Macomb County, nationally. It's really making a resurgence, and it's very disturbing.
And some might say it's a problem for everyone, not just those that are dealing with the addiction or abusing it. Now, last time you also said that you are not seeking endorsements. Has that changed? Is that still the case?
I spoke with my dad's old union. He was in the Detroit Police Officers Association, the DPOA. I spoke with them, and I haven't heard back from them. But I let them know that I'm even though I'm a Republican, I'm not against unions. I'm hoping to hear back from them. I was down at the Heidelberg Project the other day. I'm an artist, you know, and I know Tyree Guyton. He actually did say he would vote for me if he lived in Macomb County, but he lives in Wayne County. But I'm going to take that as an endorsement. So I have one. But he's a world famous artist. You guys haven't seen the Heidelberg Project. It's pretty cool.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Let's see. Do you have any other comments that you'd like to mention to the viewing audience? Why should they vote for you?
Okay. Well, we need a change in Macomb County. There's a big there's a big buddy system in Macomb County. The name, you know, you get certain names and you get elected every time. You know, like Donald Trump said, he said to the black community, you say, what do you have to lose? You know, I mean, it's the same thing. What do you have to lose by not voting for all these incumbents? You know, people complain about how politics as usual. We only can vote every so often, and for prosecutors every 4 years. So if you want a change in the prosecutor's office, this is your chance. I'm offering you this chance by running, because no one else has run in the past 12 years.
All right. You just heard from Mike Wrathell, running for Macomb County Prosecuting Attorney. Mr. Wrathell, thank you for joining us once again.